Dean Blandino, Fox NFL rules analyst, former NFL VP of officiating. We figured we'd check in with him, see if there's any new rule changes we need to be aware of. What's the one that we need to be aware of next Thursday so we don't go, oh my God, when did they do this?
I think the one that I think might take some people aback a little bit is on kickoff, and it might happen on the opening kickoff Thursday night. We'll see. You're going to see a possible fair catch by the returner, and everybody's going to go, "What? Why are you fair catching a kickoff? Because you're going to get the ball at the spot." But the rule changed, and now if you signal for and complete a fair catch inside your own 25-yard line, the ball will come out to the 25. So that's a significant rule change. It's designed to reduce the number of kick returns. I think that's one we're going to see. We didn't see it a lot in the preseason, but I think we're going to see it more in the regular season.
What about punt returns? Any conversation on reducing punt returns? Because I feel like you have as many injuries, if not more, on a punt return than a kickoff.
The data is saying that, look, the kick return has had a higher rate of injury in recent years. That's why the league has gone toward more of just trying to reduce the number of returns. And I think the punt is the next play that the league is looking at. And you're seeing more injuries, whether it's head, neck, whether it's soft tissue injuries. And I think they're looking at ways to reduce that, because health and safety is whenever you look at rules changes, it always starts with health and safety. And I think the punt, absolutely, it's kick returns, then punt and punt return. The league is going to take a good look at.
We see these Guardian helmets, and we're using them in training camp. What's the holdup of trying to use those in actual games?
No question. I think we're going to see this. And look, if it's about health and safety, and these are used in practice to limit head and neck, the concussive blows or subconcussive blows, then I think it only makes sense to figure out a way to use them in game. And I think that's something we're going to see, and it could be in the near future. And I think that's, again, it's moving toward helping just eliminate unnecessary risk for the players.
The tush push play competition committee was split on that issue. Jalen Hurts certainly ran that to a lot of success with the Eagles. Why were they split on whether they were going to keep this or not?
I think that there were two schools of thought on this. There's one school of thought that, look, this is not illegal. This is if you can do it the way the Eagles did it, good for you. It's within the rules, and they were obviously successful. I think there's the other side of that. The flip side is, again, the safety issue. You've got all these bodies, you're pushing the quarterback, people pushing from behind, defensive players trying to get at the quarterback. What is the defense going to do? Are they going to start to go low and try to submarine the offensive lineman? And it's not a particularly, aesthetically pleasing play. You think of the NFL and what makes it so great. You think of Lynn Swan and in slow motion making an incredible catch, in the Super Bowl or things like that. And this is more, not that rugby isn't an incredible game, but this is more of a brute force type play. And the committee was split. I think we're going to see more of it. There were 90 direct push plays in 2022 compared to 20 in 2021. So I think more teams are going to use it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the committee is going to continue to monitor it.
We're talking to Dean Blandino, Fox NFL rules analyst. What about reviewing roughing the passer?
Roughing the passer is obviously such a big call in the game. 15-yard penalties are game changers. And we've seen over the last several years, we've seen some calls last year, Grady Jackson on Tom Brady, which the league came out and said wasn't a foul. And it makes sense to explore, if you have this technology and you have the video. We are so far away from the original premise of replay. And I can still hear George Young, when I was a young intern, talking about replay and talking about once the camel's camel's nose is under the tent. And I had no idea what he was talking about, but I know now it's once you open that door, right, it's just going to fling wide open, and we're going to start reviewing everything. And I do think there's an opportunity, though, with roughing the passer and maybe hits on defenseless players to find some objective elements that you could look at in review and get some of these calls. There's not a ton of missed calls, but when they are incorrect and they do impact the game so drastically, I think you got to figure out a way to get those fixed.
It feels like the last couple of seasons there's been a point of emphasis that we're not going to call holding, we're going to call holding, we're going to call pass interference, we're not going to. What is the point or points of emphasis you think that refs are going to be focusing on?
I think there's a couple. I think, roughing the passer certainly is one. I think the use of helmet rule is one where last year there were only 4 called all year. And this again is a health and safety rule. 4 calls made on the field, but there were 229 fines and warning letters combined. So when you think about that gap, okay, what's happening in the game where the officials really can't see this, but we're picking it up on tape. So I think the league looked at and the committee looked at that rule. They added some language. There was language in the unnecessary roughness rule talking about you can't use your helmet to butt, spear, or ram your opponent. So they added that to the use of helmet rule to try to give the officials more clarification. So I think those fouls will go up on the field. I don't think, again, it's not like we're going to see one a game. But when you talk about a significant player safety rule, and there were only 4, not in a week, all year, I think that's where the league sees that as an issue, and we have to kind of get the officials more. We got to give them more information so they can make that call.
It feels like we're always talking about the officials. They need to be full time, that this is their full time job. Are we getting closer to that where the requirement is going to be that you can't be a lawyer? You can't be this in the offseason. You are an official. And certainly with, the advent of gambling, of getting the call right, and how much can that help you get the call more correct more often?
It's interesting. I was talking to one of our officials that we had in the XFL in the spring, last spring, and they were telling me that this was the first year where they worked a full college season. They worked the XFL season and actually worked the USFL season. So they were working almost 10 months, 11 months out of the year. And they said that this was the best they ever felt. They felt like they were on top of it because they were getting those snaps, those reps.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. Officials do spend a ton of time during the season. They are full time, as much as anybody else. They're looking at film. But again, in the spring, they're not out at practice. They do go to training camps. They do go to OTAs, but maybe it's a couple of days out of the off season. So I think we're going to see more of that. I think we're going to see a push as we continue at, like you said, the gambling and the integrity and all of those things, that if you're gonna want a piece of the action, the NFL is going to have to ensure that these games, at least even from just an optics standpoint, our officials are full time. I think it's going to happen at some point.
How does can the NFL monitor referees so there isn't an impropriety, that there isn't somebody who got to them to make a call or not make a call during a game?
It's such a big, you think about what happened in the NBA, and that would be a tremendous, tremendous blow to the integrity of the NFL and the officiating department and everything else. So there are controls in place, and this goes back a long time, as long as I've been involved in the NFL, and I go back to the mid 90s. There's companies that work with the NFL that they monitor the betting lines, they monitor how lines are affected by calls that are made during the game. The officials go through an exhaustive process just to get to the NFL, background checks. You're looking at your banking statements, accounts, your business partners, all of your relationships. Before they hire an official in the NFL, NFL security will go to the neighborhood and go door to door and talk to the neighbors. And then it doesn't stop once you're in the NFL, and they continue to look at bank accounts. If you have an official on Friday has $10 in their checking account, and then on Monday they've got $100,000, that's a red flag, right? And so they look at these things and they monitor the lines, because that strikes at the integrity of the game, and it just can't happen.
Before I let you go, the rule that you would remove is what?
The rule that I would remove, I don't know if I would necessarily remove a rule. I think I would add a rule. I do think we talked about replay earlier. I do think if we're going to go down this path of reviewing plays, I think we need to review hits on defenseless players. I think we need to give the officials an opportunity. If the game is so fast and it happens, we see it every week, we see it every game where these calls and the officials are getting one look at it from their perspective. They may get blocked out. So I think if we can give them more tools, I think that's something that I would be in favor of. Adding a little bit more to replay, not going too far. I don't think we want to review everything, but those game-changing 15-yard penalties, I think we can correct those.
What about fumbling the ball out of the end zone?
Yeah. We actually did that in the spring league in the XFL. We said if you fumble the ball out of the end zone, you get to put the ball back at the spot of the fumble. And it didn't happen until the last game of the year. And we brought it back to the spot of the fumble, and we thought everybody was going to celebrate that. And some people were happy. Other people were like, why isn't that a touchback? And the problem, it was a player, he was about at the 6-yard line and starting to celebrate a little bit early. And he got hit from behind. The ball went through the opponent's end zone, and there was no real repercussions. And so I like that being a touchback. I get it when the running back is just reaching for the goal line and just happens to fumble it at the last second and it hits the pylon. But I think the goal line, the end zone, that's sacred ground. I think you should have some penalty if you fumble into the end zone.
How do the officials get out of a stadium?
Yeah.
Is there a police escort? Is there? I'm
Great question. Great question. Yes, the officials have security. So wherever they go, they have a security person that is assigned to them that will get them. They come on a van. It's not like they have their own individual cars. They come in one van. Security, they come into right where the players come in, where the coaches come in, those entrances. They have that security person or team that's assigned to them that will get them from the van, walk them to the locker room, be with them whenever they need to. If the referee has to go to the visiting team locker room or the home team locker room, escort them, and the same thing out of the stadium. And they get them to the van. And in many cases, they have a police escort out of the perimeter of the stadium to get them on their way to either the hotel or the airport.
Wow. Great stuff. Dean, thanks for joining us. And we'll talk to you during the season.
You got it, Dan. Thanks.
Dean Blandino, Fox NFL rules analyst, former NFL VP of officiating.